My grandfather who sold books gave me a big book of Caravaggio. I remember first Bacchus.
Okay, Bacchus, yeah.
Ganyan si Bacchus.
Now you're not sure
With this,
what
with
does he
this-
mean?
I hate to say it, but you have to try to imagine a 4-year-old erection. And terror and horror and fascination all at the same time. You're looking at Caravaggio.
Yes.
This is like one of those old big books with big pictures. Yeah.
The world has gone bonkers. We now live in George Orwell's 1984. War is peace, ignorance is strength, and crazy is normal. How do you stay sane? Jose Tence Ruiz is a visual artist who, for a time, made the stretch of EDSA in Makati look bearable. I met you when you were painting a wall on EDSA.
Yes.
Yes, what was that like?
It gave me a proper melanin conversion. I turned 2 shades darker. It was fun, but it was difficult because you have scaffolding that's on a 3-meter sidewalk alongside like 10,000 cars a minute.
Yes.
And then you have to paint something that's like 17 feet tall.
Yes.
It was really fun.
Yes, and for a time, it was actually nice to look at. But,
Okay, that's nice to
which
hear.
nice to look at is not something we associate with EDSA.
Oh.
Yeah, which brings us to one of my problems with this city in general is that there are no sidewalks, or there are very thin sidewalks, and you're competing with the motorcyclists.
You're competing with the parking, you're competing with the motorcyclists, you're competing with fish balls. Yeah, and then in fact, recently I wanted to do a short film just putting the camera following all the sidewalks and the entire panoply of beauty to ugliness that you would get. Mga 30 minutes yan of sidewalks. Yeah.
Yeah, so you've painted a wall on EDSA. Are there other strange places where you have worked?
That would have been the most unusual. My house is an unusual place, but that would have been the most unusual yung sa EDSA. That would have been. The strangest place maybe would have been a 10-year-old bodega in Singapore called Hongbi Warehouse, which was opened up after 10 years, and we were free to use any rubbish that was not given over to 10-year decay. This is in 1992, and this is what became like the second Singapore International Art Festival.
Ooh, interesting.
Oh.
So, when did you realize that you were going to become an artist?
When my grandfather decided that Caravaggio was the best babysitter. I was like 4 years old. I had this penchant for taking butter knives and stabbing the electric outlets and then getting a shock.
Oh,
So sabi niya, likot ng batang yan. My grandfather who sold books gave me a big book of Caravaggio. I remember first Bacchus.
Okay, Bacchus, yeah.
Ganyan si Bacchus.
Now you're not sure
With this,
what
with
does he
this-
mean?
I hate to say it, but you have to try to imagine a 4-year-old erection. No? And terror and horror and fascination all at the same time. You're looking at Caravaggio.
Yes.
This is like one of those old big books with big pictures. And yeah, parang sabi niya, tumahimik ko.
Because, despite it being, flat, Caravaggio's very cinematic, no?
Oh, yes, no, definitely. Oh, siya talaga yung chiaro oscuro.
Yeah, he invented cinematography, we can argue.
You can still see it in my work.
The influence, that's
Yeah,
fantastic.
the modeling of things in deep space against darkness.
So this totally goes into my advocacy na give children books.
Give
Because
them books.
it's really life-changing.
Give them books. He happened to be a book dealer, so he had a lot of these little tricks on hand. I would steal away from my mother, go with him, and then he'd give me books. And he had lots of art books, which people didn't like to buy here, incidentally, but he had lots of samples.
Because they used to be super expensive.
At saka maybe they weren't cared about art in the 50s. Not too many people. Eh. So he was a bit frustrated, but he saw it as a good babysitting tool. So yeah. And then here's the follow-up. Then he also starts to bring into Manila paperbacks.
Okay.
And to begin to sell to National, Goodwill, etc.
That's fantastic. You're book people.
Professor Roseburg was a book dealer for Golden Press, so you have to imagine that. You would get 300 covers of all the latest paperbacks that they were handling, and so he would get 2 copies, and he would distribute them to the book dealers. Then he would, drawing them in likod.
Nice.
So that's all sci-fi, romance. So you can imagine how mixed up I am, because there's lots of like sexy American illustrator girls and then sci-fi, Robert Heinlein, ganyan. So yeah, I grew up on that also.
Yeah, so because of books, you got interested in painting, and then you expanded the subjects that you can paint about.
I got interested in looking at things. Painting would have to come later as a proper course talaga.
Okay.
Eventually, it leads you to drawing. Not listening in class, drawing. I had as a very imaginative classmate, Manolo Fernando, the son of Hilda. And he loved to draw, and so we like to draw imaginary wars and all of that stuff. Marvel comics, I'd get beaten up by my dad for using my lunch money to buy Marvel comics.
You wouldn't happen to have yung mga Iron Man #1 in your house?
Wala, no. That disappeared with the first house, yeah. Yeah, Spider-Man. Steve Ditko, syempre,
So do you have Spider-Man #1 in your house? Can I break into your house?
Oh my God. Yeah, you have to imagine they were 60 centavos each, so that's how old it was.
When did it occur to you that art could be your career, your livelihood?
When I was 52.
No, as in, did you have day jobs?
Always had to have day jobs upon graduation. Always had to. But it occurred to me that I love to bloody draw. Even in high school, I would do the posters for the drama club. I would hang around with Brenda Fajardo in the art
teacher.
room. Yeah. Oh, she was a great teacher. I would experiment with everybody else's art project, and she would not kick me out. Like somebody would do a sculpture, and I would pour acid on it. Ganda ng epekto, ah.
Okay. Well, wait, can we offer you a drink? What would you like to drink?
Water, please.
Could we have some water for Mr. Ruiz, please?
I am going to have to start sitting up straight.
Okay.
All right. Now, okay, hold
That
on.
is our assistant, Gamba, yes.
Let me sit
Okay.
up to approximate.
Yes. You like drawing. You did a lot of art projects, and then what happened?
I went to UST. It was one right away from Diliman. And then everybody said, "Ano mangyayari sa'yo?" Sabi niya, classic line. Advertising ka naman. Para naman mabuhay ka. So I did. I went into advertising. And I realized that, yes, I could do the work, but I would postpone it until about maybe half a day before submission. Sabi ko, this was fun, but it wasn't really fun. And then I got to hang around with the Kaisahan guys. Most of them were dropouts, ironically, but most of them liked to do painting. So I said, why don't I not tell people that I'm going to transfer to painting? In my 3rd year, I transferred to painting. I got to school at 7, left at 9 o'clock with the prodding of the security guard, and I said, this is fun. I spent 4 years of that, and then While in college, even while I was taking up painting, I worked with a magazine, Vision.
Okay.
This is the UST College Organ for Fine Arts. And at Vision, I learned print production. And so from going to the UST Press to follow up the issue of the magazine, I learned how to do catalogs for people, posters for people. So this, I found a little livelihood, ironically, to do catalogs for my sister and her corporate friends, ganyan, or some other people who wanted a brochure for this. Yeah, because I learned print production. And then eventually, one fine day, I was cutting grass outside my mother's house, and one of the professors in UST was kicked out for molesting young people, and I suddenly got a job at UST College. I will not say who.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks to because someone did not have good moral character, you got it.
This was different. This was not looking at girls.
Yeah, this was just
Yeah, this guy had
Criminal.
girlfriends in all 4 years. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. This is way before me too, 83.
okay. And so, what's the most encouraging thing anyone ever told you about your art?
The most encouraging word I heard about 5 years ago from Patrick Flores, Venice. It's like you're an athlete who boxes all your life and then somebody says Olympics. So sabi ko, it encourages you because shit, I thought I wanted to die already from having a difficulty, but Venice. I mean, for those who are in the visual arts field, because of my grandfather's books, I'd known it since the 60s. So I go, man, this is gonna be real?
And did it live up to your expectations?
Yeah, I go every year. I go every time. Yeah. It's the orig.
Yes.
It's the original. So we're always skeptical. There are about 300 biennials going on every year. But you look in history and they basically invented the word, no? In fact, it was the Exposizione Internazionale d'Italia. No, it wasn't even Biennale. It was Exposizione Internazionale until 20 years later when somebody nicknamed it a biennial. Ayun. Sabi ko, then you get it going first before you give it a name.
That's true. Yeah, and I know this is a subject that we can talk about for weeks, but you mentioned difficulties.
Yeah.
What do you mean by difficulties? Just a preview of
2 syllables.
difficulties.
Mother. So my mom comes up to me one day and says, pakitanggal mo nga yun sa bahay ko, yung nakasabit na yun. Okay, sabi ko, there we go, here we go. Maybe it was my mother's way of preparing me for not being sold. Because sabi ko, if your mother rejects you, then you can take any gallery's rejection.
Yeah, it's training for a career as an artist. No, because I've always believed that if too much encouragement to a kid, as in a kid is 12 and then it's too much encouragement, you have to give them a bit of a hard time, or else the first rejection is going to break them. And then we're talking about sanity maintenance. I feel that without my neurosis, I can't produce anything.
Agreed.
Yes.
Agreed.
Where would you be without your neurosis? You'd be painting flowers and sunshine.
Yeah, okay. That's the second word that my mother used to say. Don't you know how to paint flowers? I actually have one flower painting which is being kept in a small vault by my brothers because that's the only flower painting you're getting out of
It's
me.
so rare, it has to be in a vault. Yeah, so where do you get ideas for your work? For instance, the first work of yours I remember seeing is Takariton. How did that come about?
As you mentioned, you live in this country with the neurosis we carry. Oh,
Yes.
damn if you're not gonna create when you get home. Every day, everywhere. I live in Tandang Sora, under the shadow of the 2 big towers, of course, the Iglesia Central. And then, of course, everybody outside of that has a cariton where they sometimes live. So it wasn't gonna be difficult to make the connection. There was this abject divinity.
Towers and cariton.
There was this harking divinity, and then there was that pure abject poverty of living in the cariton. Sabi ko, damn, that's the life in the Philippines.
Yes, and you're identified as a social realist painter. Do you agree with the
Yeah, I
category?
agree. What I do not agree with is people who would impose a limit on
what
it
social
can do.
realism can do.
Alex Guillermo always said it was never a formal thing, it was a community of like minds that just wanted to show the condition of things. Sabi ko, you can show the condition in any which creative way you want. Some political officers would have wanted it to be like a more doctrinaire, easy to digest school. But sabi ko, what? Then you want to take over the government and make everybody just as unimaginative as the people you're replacing? No way. If we do want to have a renaissance in society, then yeah, man, they've got to be imaginative. They've got to be able to read things without prodding.
And let's not start with how there's very little government support for the visual arts.
To me, it's fine. It's fine. In fact, my favorite joke is, sabi ko, you guys went to London on a grant. Me, I went to Singapore as an OFW. And I made a lot more money than you all did.
Yeah, because people who go on grants, of course, they cannot make money.
Oh, yun na nga eh.
They're just really well-traveled.
But the whole idea is, yeah, you are forced to scrounge around and, make a living.
It expands your worldview, no?
It will definitely expand your worldview to look down. I think that's it brings your worldview down to earth. And that to me is very important. Because one now mixes around with the art world and one gets really lost. And I think that you can really find solace in finding friends who are really down to earth in the art world.
It's interesting you bring this up because now that, for years there's been talk about an art boom in the Philippines, and now the general public thinks of art as being something super lucrative. Now you make jillions on a single painting, etc., etc. Is that true? Is there really an art boom, and do artists feel it?
There is an art boom, and the people who say it's are the ones who sell art, of course.
Of course.
So that's nice. One can really feel it because I think 20-somethings make way more than we did when we were in our 40s. You have to go back to the old stories of Cesar Legazpi not selling a single thing at his first one-man show at the age of 52 as well. You have to remember little stories by Arturo Luz saying, yeah, we were lucky that Fernando Sobel bought them for 15 pesos each. And then this all goes to Ateneo because maybe some people don't look at it as legitimate art. And now, these things are worth the jillions that we're like ruminating in our heads,
The thing about the art boom is we keep hearing about these people in their 20s who are making so much money, and I worry a bit because, if your work now is being rewarded so handsomely, there's really no motivation for you to move on from there and to develop your style. You're going to get stuck there because that's what made you rich.
And you're going to get richer. And you are going to build yourself a museum. And you are going to, get all these honors. And yes, you are going to have to decide that I want to repeat it another time. I cannot repeat a single work. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm not trying to. I just hate repeating what I've already done. So it's a choice we make.
Yeah, because at some point you'll get bored. You'll want to move on.
Some people don't get bored making
No,
money.
it's like very popular bands, as in their album becomes a hit,
Yeah.
and then the public wants to hear the same type of music over and over and over.
Yeah.
And when they experiment, it even happened to the Beatles, right?
Yeah, until they come back with Steve O'Neill, right?
And ironically, those are the ones that have sellout shows because all their ancient classmates will come and watch.
Have the money to buy the big seats for sure.
Exactly.
I suppose one could get really mired in this entire nexus of money and art making. I always say you should be prepared to be successful so that what you do with your success is creative and not repetitive. I used to have a quarrel with another artist who said, artists have to validate themselves, therefore they have to buy an SUV. I said I use a 15-year-old car, and I said I'm totally happy and I do what I want. So it's your choice. I think eventually it boils down. We do our choice. The problem nowadays, I think, is we don't have the Van Gogh factor looming ahead. It used to loom ahead for us in the 70s.
The Van Gogh factor, as in I will sell one painting in my lifetime.
Di niyo ko kilala ngayon, pero balang araw, mahal na ng isang building, isang trabaho ko.
Yeah, pero patay na sila by that
And the
time.
funny thing is, many Filipinos who died recently have gone into complete obscurity. You ask young people, have you ever seen the work of Solomon Saprid? Sino siya?
Tikba lang.
Okay. Here's my classic quiz. Sabi ko, sino yung pinakasikat na hindi kilalang artist na 3 monumento sa Ayala? Anong pangalan niya? Sultan Kudarat, Gabriela Silang, at saka Pio del Pilar. Jose Mendoza.
Okay.
The same guy who made the map of the Philippines in Luneta. Because the same guy who also constructed all the dinosaurs in
He's
the...
still alive.
He's still alive, and he's
because having grown
quietly
up...
working in Calamba and very happy.
Having grown up among these statues, we just assume that they're old and whoever made them is long gone.
And yet this guy had to leave the Philippines to bake cakes in the States for a while because he also didn't make money. He doesn't care about fame. He just cares about having the facility to keep doing new things.
Yeah, so really oblivion is the main enemy of art.
Oh, naman, we like to be heard.
Yeah, as a social realist artist, do you think it's the responsibility of the artist to get involved in the issues of the day?
Do you think it's part of your life to stay in your room all day? Parang ganun eh.
Well, I tried, but I was turning into a blob. So
Exactly.
I started to go
Yun na
out
nga
and
eh. So I suppose, proceeding from that question, we make our own capacity choices. and we get as much involved as we can. But say, I wouldn't want to stay in my room all day as well. I will have to get involved one way or the other. Ang sense ko, how do we try to possibly outlive ourselves? The famous question, anong itsura ng Diyos, di ba? Ano nga ba itsura ng Diyos? Sabi ko, ewan ko, pero artist nagpakita sa'yo. This may be our only chance to live longer than our bodies allow. To make sense to people beyond the time we were alive. And sabi ko, how do we make sense? By having made sense of the time we were alive. As we all understood much of the world from all the art that... Oh, here's the funny thing. If any of you ever opened a book by Gregorio Zaide in your elementary school and you saw sketches of how Aguinaldo was being captured at Palanan, of how the breakout of the Katipunan Revolution was, it was most likely taken by Professor Zaide from Amadeo Manalad's Kasaysayan ng Lahing Pilipino.
I hope you're writing your memoirs right now. Because, you remember all these Jose Mendoza, Amadeo Manala, people that we all should remember, but who have somehow faded from memory.
Preparing myself for the same obscurity, right?
So, are you working on your memoirs?
No, I'm not. I'm just
You
preparing
should be.
myself for
In fact,
obscurity.
if you don't want to write it, just have a
Yes.
recorder on in
Correct.
your studio and just
Correct.
mutter to yourself, and it's all
Correct.
recorded.
You cannot imagine how I regret not having brought the studio to Nonoy Marcelo. Silang Nonoy Marcelo, daming istorya. Of course, Nonoy would do things that would keep us awake all night. I'm not gonna get into that. But he would talk all night about Philippine history and his own.
No, it's much like those old movies that as kids we watched every afternoon after the noontime shows. And since there are no more copies of a lot of them, they've all been turned into torotot.
Yeah.
Our memories are all that remain.
Wala na. Watching Tinimbang Ka Ngunit Kulang at Nation Cinema.
Wow.
I actually also watched 2001, A Space Odyssey. At the age of 13, I was a little taller so I could get in.
Did you see El Filibusterismo by Jerry De Leon? Because it's gone.
Only on television. Only on
But you saw
television.
it, yeah. Because
only on
the rest of
television.
us, we only hear about it. What do you think are the biggest problems we face as a species?
I think insecurity is our biggest problem. Insecurity that, of course, builds the disproportionate billionaires as opposed to the people who could live day to day. And of course, billionaire business will have to take away from the environment. So our insecurity that we're only going to live so much and we're not gonna mean anything.
Yeah, insecurity as in you have the super rich who need more money. As in, building on their insecurity,
Yeah.
so they're going to still keep producing this stuff that will clog the environment.
Yeah, to buy all the SR and not pay their workers enough while buying SR.
Yeah, because life is irony.
No, I've cried over that for a long time, for a couple of decades. What a thought. No?
Yeah, so how did you make yourself stop crying over the fact that rich people buy social realist paintings and don't pay their workers properly?
I said to myself, eventually everybody will forget that, but the painting might survive us all. Just as you would imagine again what the fate of the people who commissioned Caravaggio was. And yet, Caravaggio calmed a restless 4-year-old guy.
Of course, Caravaggio also killed someone
Oh,
over
yeah,
a
of
tennis
course.
match.
Yeah.
So.
And then ran away to Malta.
Yeah, where he died. Actually, the work that he was going back to Italy with, it was lost, right? So you could paint some Caravaggios now.
No, look at it this way. What keeps me from falling off the edge either way is, sabi ko, not only do you not imagine yourself living only in a room, just imagine yourself living in a daily world without creative, quirky things.
And yet, most people, I think that is how they live.
Boredom, no? The sheer tedium of being alive without
Although,
art.
to backtrack a bit, it's so much easier in the digital age to just live in your room because everything comes to you.
I know.
Your food will be delivered.
I know.
You can watch videos, your books, you download, etc.
My work is art and my hobby is art, but I have another hobby. I surf Tumblr. Instead of having to go to the UST library and spend 6 hours looking at all the books, you can access all of this imagery on the internet. So that gets to become a vice, no? But to me, I justify it. I say,
technically, you're not sitting in your room cut off because the world
I'm
comes
not
to
cut
you.
off.
Yeah.
No, in fact, not only am I not cut off, I always remind myself, akala mo magaling ka na, hindi, ang galing niya. And you see that one and you say, okay, back to the studio, come up with something good this time because you've seen somebody again. This whole idea of jadedness na yung parang, wala na, they're not the sellable ones maybe, but there really is somebody popping out somewhere with something different.
I think we can agree that we live in really anxious times, as in, you're thinking climate change, you're thinking the AI apocalypse, you're thinking, the rise of the populist far right movements, etc., etc. So how do you maintain your sanity in a world that is conspiring to make you crazy?
I remember my mother's chicken shit stories. My mother used to say, oh, you think you're having a hard time? I was ducking 50 calibers and I jumped into the chicken patch and I had shit all over my face. We have never not lived in crisis times because we're humans. We're here to obliterate each other. The nice thing is to find people who just like a balance of being together and happy.
Well,
but yeah, we're somewhere here with all our intelligence to obliterate each other. So no, we've never been free from crisis.
Yeah. So how do you deal with anxiety whenever the state of the world troubles you, and then you paint something?
Yeah, then I paint.
What advice do you give artists at the start of their career? I can already quote you as saying, it's more important to be good than to be hot.
I will say the same advice I give my kids. Like what you do. Be good at what you like. Sabi ko, that's the only excuse for sticking to what you like. Kasi what you like na, indulgence na yan eh. But if you're good at it, you're useful to people eh. And this is what we are, right? You write well, damn, we're glad to read it. Really
but the advice I always give to people who want to write is, don't be a writer, get a proper job. And then, you write on the side. When you're a doctor, you can take up writing as a hobby because seriously, you think artists have trouble making a living.
No, we don't. No,
you should try being a writer.
I know what you mean. Yeah. I know what you mean. I mean, I'm in that 60-70 bracket and I look at the writers and they talk, so which tycoon are you biographing now, Kind of. That's the talk among the old writers. It's not what novel are you coming out with.
Except that, the tycoons are not going to hire me because I'm weird.
Well, can I give you a high five on that? Yeah, I know what you mean.
Weirdness, yes.
Yeah, weirdness. That's the other thing I think, unfortunately, which is so counterintuitive in the age of FB, is not to be bloody self-conscious. Because people are so self-conscious about what they do. Oh, I'm doing the work in progress and now it's going to be a work in progress, progressing to be a work.
Oh, no, I don't have that because I used to work on deadlines. So deadlines used to be my only inspiration.
Yeah.
No deadline, no pay.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, but it is true that in the age of social media, we all feel that we're being watched and judged. The sad thing is, most of the time, it's true.
Oh, that's why we all adopt pseudonyms.
Yes. And so, what do you think is your best work? As in, when the big retrospective comes, which one is going to have pride of
This is
place?
the classic 12:30 story when the collector comes to your house.
Yes.
So what's the best one?
Yes.
Okay, the answer is the next one I'm gonna make.
And which work do you want to disavow?
If you see any cartoons out there signed Blasco, I want to disavow those ones. They were under deadline, under hangover, usually with heartbreak, but they had to be submitted.
Okay, so the devil appears to you in a puff of smoke, assuming there's a devil, and says, I will give you whatever you want if you quit. So what would it take to make you quit?
Now I'm gonna play a trick with the devil.
Yeah.
I said, you have to give me Palazzo Grassi, 5-story
in Venice,
life retrospective. Then I'll quit. Pwede, di ba?
Pwede.
That's what I want. And he's gonna get all my works for the last 50 years and put them in Palazzo Grassi that's owned by Pinot. It's 5 stories of your entire life in a fantastic palazzo. Sabi ko, then I can quit.
So, okay, so all you want is a massive retrospective in the palazzo of Salma Hayek's husband.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
And she doesn't even have to cut the ribbon.
No, I don't do it. As long as they mount it.
Yes.
Being in the space is enough.
Okay.
Then I can quit.
Okay, so, that's not so far-fetched.
No, it is. It is. Okay. I am down to earth. I'm gonna walk away from here and ride a bus.
You never know.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Honestly, when you hit your 60s, you're thinking of that deal every day. When When do I quit and when is it good to quit?
As in, you actually have thought of quitting?
Life is not easy on the body when you hit 60.
Well, yeah, but what's the point of living if, why would I
that's what
continue
pulls me
living
back.
if I
You're right.
would
No.
not be writing?
Yeah, that's what pulls you back, for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. But you're pulled back with a lot of weight and reluctance.
Yeah, so we have to find a way to end this interview on
yeah.
on a cheerful note.
Oh,
So, how many exhibits do you have lined up this year?
3, I hope if the guys I'm organizing it with get back to me by
And has the
email.
work been done, or you're still going to go back to your studio?
I am only working on the preliminary 1 to the 3. Yes, they all have to be done yet. Community events, the art fairs, etc., those are not considered really a show. So those are first there because they might lay the foundation for a little lubrication in the whole event of making.
Yeah, so you've got a
AKA
lot of
sales.
painting to do this year, so we have to return you to your studio. Thank you very much for
Oh,
coming.
thank you,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you for actually listening.
No, we have so many more questions, but you'll be back. Yes.
Okay.